It is the Boneyard podcast. Coach Corey Campbell alongside Matt Mosley here, and we're in the belly of the beast. We're coming to you from campus. Plays all over the walls. Wildcats getting ready. There was a skill meeting going on before we started tonight, before we started taping. And, the Wildcats are getting ready. They always do. But, boy, Coach, congratulations. A by-district championship, and one that is especially sweet because you had to go on the road to do it in a tough environment, the Gopher Bowl, kind of a famous venue in Texas high school football. And it was one of those just you find a way. And, you know, a lot of times we just say things like, oh, who's going to have the ball last is going to win. And this really played out like that. Although at the end, much like against Morton earlier in the year, at the end, you guys got it done.
Yeah, I was really happy for our kids. We preach in our building that 1-0 mentality, and it was back and forth in that second half. They scored, we scored, they scored, we scored, and our kids didn't blink. They kept that mentality of trying to win on the very next play, and it's fun as a coach. You get to look in the eyes of kids. And after a big playoff win like that, and you just see that enjoyment, and that's ultimately what we want for our kids. Many of them, they couldn't. I mean, they were spent. They left it on the field. So, super happy for our staff and our players and our community, and it was an exciting game.
Well, and it was one of those. It was a Jekyll and Hyde type game. You think you're settling into a defensive battle and some field goals, and you knew special teams always plays a role in these things, in these games. And I mean, kickoffs. There were just so many different parts of this game. But just how interesting is that from a coaching standpoint to watch for a half a game play out one way and then it go a completely different direction in the second half.
Yeah, ironically, in the first half, we just felt like we went in at halftime and made some adjustments, and we didn't put the ball in the end zone, and we were moving the ball in multiple drives up and down the field, and just didn't come away with a touchdown, and so we went in at halftime again, just a few adjustments, and credit to our kids in the second half, they made some of those plays we didn't make in the first half. And the thing kind of turned into a track meet, so kind of a tale of two halves, so to speak. But, it was fun to see us execute some of that stuff down the stretch.
Okay. And, I thought that was important. You've stayed with this kicker, and he's done a good job for you this year. And those were big. And then a big special teams play on the block punt. Walk me through kind of that play, and y'all put pressure on the punter this season. One issue has been let's not rough the punter, let's take the right angle. You've had to kind of talk about some of those things, but that was a big play there in the first half.
Yeah, when you can turn the ball over, especially in games like that, it's huge. We had worked on a couple different looks. Coach Wells and that unit does a great job, and we were able to get through there, block the punt. Thought we had an opportunity to maybe recover it in the back of the end zone. Some things, those things take funny bounces and hard to get on, but our defense, got that safety, and that was big for us.
All right, and it's interesting. There are plays that in the NFL that live forever among teams, and like one of them, I remember Donovan McNabb had like either 3rd and 26 or 4th and 26, and they somehow converted. And that season, it became a huge deal. Every college team has one huge moment, but to be backed up like you were at one point in that second half, and you're probably thinking, okay, let's do what we can here, and we may have to punt the ball away and play some defense, but to that screen pass that goes for 90, would you just call that a perfectly designed screen? Is that the way we should discuss that?
I think it's more of a mentality. Defensively, you kind of get into a mode of you're getting after the quarterback, and I think they felt like that they were definitely putting some pressure on us at the quarterback position. And I think they were kind of in that third down mode that sometimes defenses get in. There's not a ton of, I'd love to tell you, I've got 7 or 8 plays that we work to 3rd and 23, but we don't. Mm-hmm. And so, I think it's it's one of those high percentage plays where you don't feel like the rush is going to be too much involved. Sometimes you'll get a spy, obviously screen pass. Sometimes, obviously, you'll get defensive linemen that are tired, or they don't get that big rush, but they were coming after us pretty hard all night long. And so, we hit that a couple times to Christian, to that single receiver side, and it was big for us.
All right. Conrad made big plays. Franklin in the passing game continues to make big plays. Chuck throws for over 400. I think leads now the area in touchdown passes, third in passing overall. And we're talking about Class 6A and all these incredible quarterbacks across the area. And he just continues to put up big numbers. Y'all had the one wheel route early in the second half where he'd probably like to get back. They made a good play on the ball. But in terms of the rest of the evening, what's it like, because you're talking to him and but when you get, suddenly you're involved in a track meet and it's like, there is that feeling, hey, we better score on every drive. How did he seem like he handled that really well and did not put too much pressure on himself?
Yeah, our kids didn't blink. I mean, when the score fest kind of started happening, on the sidelines, we just and Coach Haug does this, is we just kind of talk to our kids about what we really like the next series. If there was a look we didn't like in the previous series, if they changed something, etc. They showed us a different look in our double stack set that we had seen on video against Arlington Bowie. And so we had to make some adjustments early in the first and second quarter for that. But once we started kind of getting going, it was just kind of, again, like we talk about, that next play mentality.
All right. And let's talk special teams for just a second. You're going to have to make some decisions because, Allen's going to have some speed. In the past, you've had to make calls like, okay, do we want to pooch this? Do we want to go deep? What do we the old roller is always an option too, I guess. On one return, y'all had seemingly the coverage and the guy escapes and goes for about 60 yards or something. I would imagine that's going to be a big stress point this week is, hey, we had some good plays on special teams. There's some things we have to do to lock down on coverage.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you got to, eliminate the explosive plays in the special teams game, just like we talk about offense and defensively. I think one of the things when you turn on the tape and you look at a team the caliber of Allen, is you've got to show them multiple looks. And, and Coach Wells and I meet in pregame at the same time every Friday night, and we kind of discuss, what's going on with the elements. Do we have a wind? In the Gopher Bowl the other night, that thing kind of swirls down there. The flags don't actually match what's happening on the surface down there. And so we talked about, what is the yardage that we think we can kick it from? If we have the wind, can we kick it out of the back? Who do we not want to kick it to? There's so many different elements that go into that. And so, and that'll be a big part of Friday night. I don't know if we're going to have weather. I think the weather may be out. The temperatures may be a little cooler, but there's supposed to be rain in the middle of the week. So that's kind of one of the, some of the things that we look at when we talk about that special teams game. And there's definitely guys that we prefer not to kick it to, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And problem is, and you can't. Sometimes it's almost preferable to kick it out of bounds as opposed to some of that stuff. But you don't want to do that either because that gives them the ball where you don't want them to have it. Just the overall, you talk about complimentary football. I in watching that game from a fan or media perspective, I would say late, it's like, oh man, they held serve. Oh, you had to kick. Tell me what went into your decision, and obviously you didn't get the punt or the little, you wanted to squib it down there and hopefully back them up. It didn't work out. You're thinking down there about, do I punt? Do we go for it? We're at a weird part of life. How much are we actually going to gain? Do we want to give it back to them? We're always kind of going into that decision. And then I think the fact that your defense at a time after they had been struggling for a period of time in the second half, really back-to-back possessions late, stepped up in a big way.
Yeah, I think one of the things you have to look at is what's going on at the present time in the game. Or you feel like that if you punt it, you're going to get a 3 and out, or if you feel like the other team is just back and forth in that track meet fashion we talk about. And so, we talked about it as staff. Hal really wanted to go for it. We talked about, if we don't get it, our defense be able to get that stop. Got late. And so those are some of the things that kind of go back and forth. And we ended up obviously going for it. And Trey Willis makes a big catch. Chuck kind of gave himself a little bit more time, scrambled in the pocket a little bit, and we were able to get that. And then on top of that, we had one timeout. And so in thinking you have one timeout, we knew that we had probably 2 rushes at least because we could stop the clock on one of the rushes. So we didn't want to get into where we're just going to drop back every play. And then obviously, the second time we rushed the football, Christian pops one and takes it all the way down. And then, our defense gets a stop to end the game.
All right. And it had to be, like you said, to see your kids, see the excitement. And that, I really good crowd. I think Lake Highlands, obviously, anywhere y'all go, especially this time of year, you end up with seemingly as many fans as the other team, even if they're home. What was that like to have the support of the crowd and just the overall feeling, getting to receive that ball? Because by the way, I was looking at that's the talk about. You need to kind of celebrate these things. I know you don't. You let the rest of us and Glenn Gann, our historian, come up with some of these numbers. But that is the 3rd straight year to advance the second round. Has not happened since Jerry Gayden did it from 95 to 99, and then Coach C did it 92 to 94. So I think you have to savor these things. And I know you're quickly what's next, but you got to savor, what continues to be a really good accomplishment for the program.
Yeah, it's special. Anytime you get one of those gold balls handed to you at the end of a game, you don't want to take that for granted. I'm not great at that. I think the Gopher Bowl for me, I probably was in elementary school, young. I think I saw my first football game there. And then to go back there, I think in 2019, I took a picture of my family and my kids were really small and all the stuff. And then you're back there in 2025, those tight sidelines and that bowl. The sidelines are barely deep enough for 2 people to stand and your back's against the wall. And that's just kind of a characteristic of that place. And I think all that makes that really special. And then, the number one thing is we've watched our kids work. We've been there beside them, whether it's in the summertime or non-district or whatever it's been. And just to be able to be there and experience that smile on their face with them and to be so proud of them and for them to get to experience that is special.
All right. And we're going to go behind enemy lines. And the good thing is, Allen's a small little school up north of here, and that should be easy to prepare for. No, that's going to be a Herculean task. And, but again, I'm reminded of, and you were calling plays on the staff with Lonnie when they went out to play at the Rangers' new ballpark out at Globe Life, and Wildcats were on top of that game at halftime. Now this is a different crew, and who knows? And I don't know, is it 17 or like 20 D1 offers? This is an extremely deep team, but as I was joking out there before we started, there's only so many you can put on the field at the same time, and you guys have some incredible athletes on your team. So it's I guess people would like to know this as we tape this on the Monday after the big Friday win, like what's happening this time of, when we have in the playoff season. Do you change things up much? Is there even more from the scouting and the plays? How much does this get ramped up this time of year?
Yeah, as far as the preparation, the scouting and the stuff that you're referring to, I think the big difference is, we traded 11 ball games. So that's a lot on Saturday for us to break down. And we broke down all 11. And then you're spent on, when we leave here on Saturday evening and then coming back on Sunday and then trying to start to rehearse, some of the things that we like and some of the things that we don't and what fits and, really starting to kind of dive into who they are. And then from a player perspective, I think this time of year, one thing that's different is, today we didn't hit a whole lot. We had some guys that played, unbelievable on Friday night, and they're still battered and bruised a little bit. So we want to try to take care of their body a little bit and not beat them up on a Monday. We'll ramp up the physicality part of it tomorrow and Wednesday before we do our kick the field on Thursday. The rest of the stuff it's not too different. Our kids were here this morning for scouting report. We'll be in the weight room in the morning. We'll be in video. It's kind of business as usual. Coaches are kind of creatures of a habit. So, we don't do anything too crazy.
All right. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I'm just looking at some of the, some of the numbers your kids have put up. I do want to hear like your offensive player of the game, defensive player of the game, and we can do a unsung hero. But who did you have as your offensive player of this game?
Yeah, our offensive player of the game. I know I've done this a couple of times, but we actually it's going to be Christian Rhodes, Chuck Smith, and Franklin Evans. All three of those guys played extremely well. Whether Franklin had a huge catch in the end zone, he made it look super simple. Obviously, Christian's all-purpose yards were unbelievable, and Chuck threw for a lot and all the stuff. I mean, they can't do that stuff without. I thought our O-line played pretty well at times. We struggled, a little bit in the first half, but made some of those adjustments. So those three guys will be our offensive players of the week. And then defensively, Peyton Nicholson, I don't know if you noticed, but we changed his jersey to number 55. He played some offensive guard for us. He got in the huddle twice in the second half. We were trying to, make sure that he wasn't going to be gassed on defense, and he put himself in the game. And it goes to just show you his character and, his will. And, he's one of those guys at the end of the game, he had nothing left to give. And so he's going to be our defensive player of the week. And then our unsung hero is going to be Brody Hollowell. He had to step in the first half. Beckett got injured, and so he didn't play the rest of the game. And so, you never know when your number is going to be called. And, Brody went in there and did really well. And so he's going to be our unsung hero this week.
All right. And I didn't know if you were giving out awards for opposing bands or anything like that, but that was one of the things. And David Zimmerman and Philip Kern doing the broadcast. It was fun to get to hear from those guys, and they bring great energy. But boy, they were letting it be known that there were some things going on with the band. For people that don't quite understand kind of what was going on, there is a point where you're not allowed to be playing. What was going on with that?
Yeah, so I believe we had it. I believe it was. I'm not sure the down and distance. It was deep in their territory. We were going west towards the ramp, and obviously their band was in that west end zone, and they ramped it up basically almost in with our cadence. Some of that loud, get after it. And they got called on it, and then they obviously we false start, and so they warned them. And so I argued with the officials a little bit. They need to wave that flag off then if there was a warning, and they did, rightfully so. And it was kind of back and forth all night. They were really stretching the fabric there of when they could play and when they couldn't and stuff like that. And what a cool environment to be in. Hats off to our band. They were trying to give it back to them as well. And so I think we even got a warning. And so you just get into that bowl with a ton of people, thousands of people in there. And it just makes for a great environment.
All right. So many things came to mind there, but I'm glad they waved that off. And it was almost like you were paying homage to like one of my favorite moments of Mike Gundy is just him losing it with a band not supposed to be playing in one of those Oklahoma State games. You got a little Gundy in you. Gundy was a great offensive play caller and offensive coach. So, and he's a man who likes a good visor, doesn't he? I think he does look like a good visor. All right. Well, those were really good. We got more to go. And that is, I love the players of the game too. I mean, it seems usually I would get you for being a cop out for naming three, but I mean the three horsemen. That was. I mean, they really are, and it's almost like you can't name one without the other. Franklin, and he continues to be. Although I like our PA guy because he stresses the Franklin, and I kind of like that. All right, it is getting time now to go behind enemy lines, and Davis Wilson, who went to Lake Highlands, then went to Missouri, and is now out working in the area in the media world. was at that game the other night, and he is going to go behind enemy lines and take a peek at Allen. And just so everybody know, so they can get out there and get tickets and everything, this is McKinney ISD Stadium, 7 o'clock Friday. And is this still like a brush fire situation where the same way you would normally get tickets for some of the Lake Highlands games? And a lot of you have season tickets, but just get on brush fire and get your tickets that way. Any more information on trying to get people out there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, headed north on 75. I don't have to tell people around here in this community, 5 o'clock traffic's not fun. Headed north. Obviously, we'll roll out a whole lot sooner than that. But I look for a great atmosphere. 7 o'clock, McKinney ISD. I mean, what a venue! It's a special place to play. I think they have they've hosted the Division II national championship over and over up there, and so they've built a special for our kids to get to play in venues like that, and so we're excited.
All right, and we'll do some history in a little bit, but just so people know, in case you want to beat the traffic or get up there early, and it is a stadium that's not like surrounded by an entertainment district or anything. There is, as I recall, a Jets Pizza right across the street. That's good Detroit-style pizza, a real crusty kind of. I used to get the French bread kind of stuff, Red Baron type thing. It's pretty good. So I'm just saying, keep that in mind if you want to get up there and then go across the street and get you some pizza. So, just trying to help with some.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, by the way, and then Matt's El Rancho is up that direction too. If people come through, you got to go through Allen to get to this stadium, and you can stop and get some Bob Armstrong dip, and that would be good. Okay, without further ado, it is time to go behind enemy lines. Davis Wilson joins Coach next.
Okay, welcome into Behind Enemy Lines. Coach, congrats on the win. It's a fun game to be at. I was up there with actually your former player, Mitch Colson. I was watching with him.
Very cool.
So that was a fun game to be at. But looking ahead now, the Allen Eagles, obviously a big name here in Texas. How has it been? How are you feeling after your win and now preparing for Allen?
Yeah, I think it's one of those deals where Friday night, when the game's over and, you've had a chance to, visit with your family and kids and, we get on the bus and we come back here and, we start to have a little bit more communication with Coach Wigington and Allen and things like that. We started to, figure out, where we were going to play. We had multiple options. We ran into some roadblocks. We wanted to play Mesquite Memorial and somebody was flipping home and home with that. And so you're trying to trade video and you're trying to get officials and do all this stuff. And a lot of that takes place earlier in the week, but you haven't finalized anything till you know for sure who's going to be in the game. And so, we were doing that, and it was probably, 12:30, 1 a.m. when we started, those details were starting to get finalized. And then, staff's coming up 7 a.m. Saturday morning, and you slowly start to put the SGP victory to bed the best you can. And then you start to turn your attention towards Allen. Obviously, they have an unbelievable football team. I believe they're ranked second in the state. We'll talk more about their offense and defense. But, over the years, just had a tremendous program, a lot of respect for those guys up there. Just a huge in 2000, 2005, 2010, school districts had a chance to try and decide if they wanted to be multi-school district, whether it was in the Friscos where they were building them, really fast, or, Plano had multiple high schools, and, suburbia wasn't quite up in the Melissa, Anna, Salina, Gunner, Van Alstyne area. And so a lot of things were happening at that time. And so Allen kind of said, this is who we want to be, a little bit different than a lot of schools. And, their population's, 7,000, 8,000 kids. And so they have a ton of numbers. I think we played them in 19 when Chad Morris was there. And like I said, there's just a ton of respect for those guys. But that's kind of how we went from Friday night to Saturday. And then obviously, I can't talk to the kids at 1 a.m. on, I guess, Saturday morning. And so you're trying to get information to those guys. And then, it starts to trickle out. And then we release something on social media when everything's, wrapped up and stuff sometime on Saturday. And then we're here.
Yeah. So Allen went undefeated, obviously, won most of their games in pretty dominant fashion. I think they won by an average of 44.5 points a game. So they beat up on teams, but they played Louisville in the first round, and Louisville's a good program too. Louisville kept it. I think it was a 7-point game at the end. So I think that was one of their smaller margins of victory. Maybe not the smallest, but one of them. So I'm wondering if you have been able to watch that game, and if there's anything that you saw Louisville do that you think was a good thing, if you're going to try to emulate anything that they did.
Sure. I think when you talk about their defense is tremendous. I think they've had 5 or 6 shutouts this year. And then when you take the Prosper game and the Louisville game and you look at those, obviously those are unbelievable programs as well. And so when you start to dissect that, I think Louisville had a good plan and they stuck with the plan. They played really well on defense, not allowing Allen to, get to that 44-point margin that you're talking about. And it just allowed them to stay in the game. And I think, that's what obviously we're going to try and do. And when you talk about what are some of the keys to the game, like you always ask me, Allen is going to be very, very multiple. They're going to motion and shift more than anybody we've seen. And so that makes it tough on the defense. And so the preparation part of that today at practice was showing our kids the different looks on video in the morning and then getting out to the practice field and trying to emulate that the best we can. And then on offense, they've got some really talented players. Their offensive line is ginormous. Receiver really good. Got a lefty quarterback. Running back's good. And so I don't. When you turn on the video, I don't think you see any holes. Just see they've played a couple really good teams.
Yeah.
Obviously they won both of those games. Some of the games obviously were a little closer than others, but as you look at that, I think that's one of the things that you got to establish some type of running game. You got to protect the quarterback. And then you got to have great eyes on defense. When you start to look at some of that motions and stuff, and you got to make them work for you. You can't give up the big explosive plays. And I think that's kind of what Louisville did.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about what Allen does offensively. Obviously, they have a ton of talent. They're scoring like 44 points a game, I think, and they have guys, going to school everywhere. It seems like. So, what are they gonna try to do on offense?
Yeah, it's very multiple. When I talk about spread, and when Lee was at Midlothian Heritage, and I think that's one of the things. There's a lot of different aspects of what they do. They just don't hang their hat on. They'll get an empty and motion one of the receivers and run quarterback power. They'll get in there and have a tight end and they'll run. So we're going to see a lot of different looks. And I think if I had to describe who they are, I don't think they hang their hat and say, man, we've got to give it to this back or throw it to this receiver. When you watch that Prosper game, all those guys made plays, to try to hold on for that victory. And so I think when you talk about them from an offensive perspective, they're going to be multiple and they're really good up front.
Yeah. I've always kind of been curious if when you play a left-handed quarterback, is that anything different? Does it give your defense a different kind of look when it's either lefty?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot. I mean, I don't have a ton of lefties in the program, so we don't try to grab the lefty when we're playing the lefty and put him on the scout team or anything like that. I think it's more about the video study. And you don't make it too much more than that, when we're looking at it, if he's better rolling out to the left, we may want to, pressure him from the left to make him escape to the right, where it may be a little bit more difficult than some of our pressures and things like that. But we don't do too much with a lefty.
Yeah. Allen's defense, like you said, really good. They gave up their season high in points against Prosper, that game you're talking about, where I think they won 31-30. So they gave up 30 points. Prosper is able to throw the ball a lot. Obviously, that's something you guys can do. You guys already talked about Chuck Smith and what he was able to do against South Carolina Prairie. But Allen has been really good against the run. I mean, there were games where they allowed negative rushing yards. I think At the end of the year, they're averaging like 59 rushing yards allowed per game. So when you have that, and like you look at the Prosper game where they were able to throw it, and they, didn't necessarily run the ball super well. You guys have the ability to throw, and you have the ability to run. How, if at all, does that change your game plan? You already talked about you wanted to establish the run. Is that something you're going to want to try to do against these guys?
I think you have to be careful of just getting into this game where you feel like, man, nobody else has had success. We don't want to do this. Some of the statistics from their defense are crazy. I think if you take the Prosper game out of it, I think they're allowing 5 points a game. And then if you add the Prosper game, I think it's maybe 7.1, just over a touchdown. I think Louisville maybe had, less than 10 yards rushing the other night. It wasn't very much.
Yeah.
And some of that, it gets into the sack total that moves that number down and all this stuff. So I think even though at times you feel like, man, we're not having success here, you want to continue to be multiple. I think if you get in a one, you're only going to throw or you're only going to run or stuff like that, that allows the defense to kind of pin their ears back and they know what's coming. And so I think challenged us and, up front, I think you've got to establish some type of running game. They talk about it in the NFL a lot, some of that play action stuff, even though he maybe only rushed for 78 yards in the game, if you stick with it, some of that play action stuff is better. And I think that's very true. And then the second part of that, you got to protect the quarterback. They've got some elite defensive guys, and they are going to be multiple. They're going to bluff. They're going to show blitz. They're going to come off the edge. They're going to bring the corner from the boundary. They're going to do so many different things, and we've got to protect the quarterback, to be able to have that multiplicity that we talk about. And so, at the end of the day, it's a huge task. But just like I told the kids, there's 32 teams left in the state of Texas. We're one of them. And, we're going to go there and try to win a football game.
Yeah, absolutely. You may have already mentioned it, but what defense are they running?
Yeah, they're a 4-man front. They're an even front. They play a traditional 4-3. Okay. When you put two backs in the backfield that we do sometimes in our deuce set, they'll move one of those backers into the box and play a cowboy safety. But they base out of an even.
Mm-hmm. You talk about Allen, just they're like I said, a name that everybody knows here. They're like you said, number 2 in the state. There's all this kind of added stuff with when you play Allen. Like sure. They're a great program. Outside of football stuff, have you talked game plan and whatnot? Have you talked to the team about just an opportunity like this? A big chance for an upset where a lot of eyes are going to be on you.
Yeah, most definitely. We talked about it today at the end of practice. About us. Not deviating from who we are, trying to keep that. They're going to win on plays. There's no doubt. But we've got to keep that mentality of, hey, next play. Crazier things have happened. And like I said, we're going to prepare to go up there, for a war. At the end of the day, survive and advance. You hear that a lot. And so we're not doing anything in our building that's getting too much away from just our every. I think, kids understand, how we practice on Monday. They understand how we watch video. They understand all the stuff. And so just can continue to keep that routine. Mm-hmm. And then, we're not playing today. And so, we need to get more comfortable with the install, more comfortable with the game plan. You can't watch enough video, all that stuff. And then, Friday will be here soon enough.
Yeah. Everyone's talking about Allen, but you guys are very talented and have had a great season. When you look at film, is there anywhere in this Allen matchup where you feel like you guys have an advantage or have a chance to, find a mismatch?
I think there's different areas. I don't know if I want to go into them all, but I think there's different areas. But make no mistake, it's not like they're super talented. With all those kids in that school, and like talked about the population, it's not like they have a linebacker that's not good, or a defensive end, or a safety that doesn't cover well. He plays the run well. And so, they're ultra talented, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, turn on the video. I think as a coach, you're trying to find any glimpse of where that might be. And, I think there's some certain things that we want to try to do on Friday.
Yeah, don't give it away on here for sure. Last thing I have, we'll close it how we usually do. You already mentioned it, but just tell us again, keys to the game if Lake Highlands wants to go get a win.
Yeah, I think, again, what I mentioned, I walked into the defensive classroom multiple times this weekend. They just do there's a ton of movement. Mm-hmm. And so I think you got to be careful about, getting lost in the sauce, so to speak. You got to have great eyes. We've got to prepare them for all those motions and all those things they do. And I think when you play a team like Allen, you need to make them work for it. And so you need to win. We need to win on first down. Mm-hmm. Whether they're running it or throwing it, we need to limit explosive plays on first down. And then from an offensive perspective, I think kind of like I mentioned a while ago, I think we have to establish some type of run game. We know it's going to be difficult up there. We know what caliber of football team they are, but you have to stay with it and you have to establish some type of running game, and you got to protect the quarterback.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Keys to the game. Coach, thanks for doing this.
You bet.
Good luck.
Thank you for having me.
This has been Behind Enemy Lines. I'll hand it back to Matt, and he'll finish off this week's episode of the Boneyard podcast.
All right, that was the Behind Enemy Lines, and Coach, here we are. It's all pointed toward this one, and I like what you said about, not trying to change anything. I mean, and again, yes, I mean it's bigger than a lot of colleges out there. This place, and it's huge, but they can only get so many people on the field at the same time. And I was thinking as I heard you and Dave was talking, like I wouldn't trade Franklin and Christian for their running backs. I wouldn't trade this receiving core for them. I mean, so I don't know. I don't want to go down the line because I might make a few trades. No, but I there's a lot of great players on these Wildcats, and I would not be saying, "Oh, give me this guy, give me that guy." Before I forget, by the way, I also want to encourage folks to basketballs is starting up, and it's gotten going, and the girls are going, the guys, and there's a boys basketball podcast. Joe Duffield does it with Scott Woodard and Brendan Morris. And in fact, Brendan has a son that's Wright that plays for you on this team. And it's a very entertaining. In fact, I know Henry Moore. I'm trying to think what other players. They'll get mad at me for not mentioning them, but I know Henry's on there. They had some players on this last podcast, and they have a great time with that. And those guys are really good friends with Coach Duffield. And he's got a daughter on the girls' team. It's a really good player. She won a big 3-point shooting contest, I heard recently. I was trying to think who won it for the boys. Maybe I'll give it to Henry. I don't know. No, it wasn't. Sorry, Henry. It was a little point guard. But this is a deep Lake Highlands boys and girls team. So excited to get that going too, right?
Yeah, I think when you talk about, obviously we're knee deep in the playoffs, and football and stuff, but it was kind of a joking today with one of the coaches, and you have these moments a little bit, and we're out on the field, and and in August you're like it's 110 out there and it's hot, and then people start to make jokes about when the leaves start to change a little bit. You're doing well in football. And I think that's kind of one of the things when you kind of start to, basketball's kicking off and you're still playing football. And it's just that time of year where it's exciting, that we are still playing football. And then when the leaves fall, if you're still playing football, then you're doing something really special. And so it's just part of the process. And, good luck to our basketball programs as they get going, and it'll be fun to watch those kiddos.
All right. That will be fun, and we'll be out there watching those. Y'all hit on a lot of things going on with Allen. Just a little history. 1998, first meeting between these teams, and back then, and well, a lot of these coaches, and over the years, Todd Graham was coaching at Allen. He's coached at been a college head coach since then, and according to our historian, has maybe even contemplated politics later in his career. I know that's something you're pondering. And then that was at Old Eagle Stadium back there, currently behind the Freshman Center, Allen ISD. But always fun to kind of look back at those games. That was a Lake Highlands team that had a rough start that year, was 3-4, just kind of hanging in there, and then caught fire. And that was a Jerry Gaden team, and they went through playoffs. And this is something I'd love to see you guys do, Coach. Garland, Tyler John Tyler, Austin Westlake, and Lufkin before losing in the state semifinals against Midland Lee. Who do you think was playing running back that year for Midland Lee?
Benson.
Yeah, that's right, Cedric Benson. And that was the first of legendary Rebels coach Bob Parchman's 3 straight 5A state titles. All right, and some of those blasts from the past, quarterback for Lake Highlands, Peter Ruth, had over 1,000 yards rushing to go along with the fullback Jeremy Boyce. And Wade Smith, who ended up playing in the NFL, was playing O-line for the Wildcats, played for the Dolphins, Jets, Chiefs, Texans, Seahawks, my gosh, Eagles. And then Don McGee went off, played at UNT, a defensive back. Reggie Newhouse. I love the Newhouse family. Reggie played at Baylor and put up great numbers. Those were some rough Baylor teams because I was at all those games. But Reggie was the shining star for those teams, and then he played some for the Arizona Cardinals, where Rod, his older brother, was a personnel man for a little bit. Rod played at Rice. So the Newhouse family, including their sisters, extremely talented family. And, of course, their dad, the famous Cowboys player, the late, great Robert Newhouse, who, as we tape this, we're getting ready for Monday Night Football. Robert, who had the biggest legs ever, I think we've ever seen for a fullback, but think about him because he was involved in a lot of those early Monday night games for the Cowboys. All right, and then Brian Marr, one of the Harden brothers, who those guys went to Memphis, but Antoine Harden, and then Stuart Satulo, who would later go on to play at Yale. So always fun to look back at those games. Wildcats won that game 17-7 up there in Allen. I like it when Glenn picks historical things where we came out on the right side. I don't want to read about a loss to Allen. There might have been a couple through the years, but I remember that game, even though they did lose, y'all did lose. The game was 24-14. It was, y'all really kind of dominated a lot of the first half, and they had the huge band, the huge crowd, all that. But I remember the Wildcats bringing a ton of people out there. So, I think you can link, these kids were probably 7th and 8th grade when that happened, but still, it's going to be a great atmosphere. And my hope, not that you're going to give us your game plan, but I do like the memory of y'all had 1 year where it didn't work out for you against Highland Park at their place. And the next year, I just remember y'all threw a haymaker at them early, and you kind of hit them with a wave, and they honestly never did recover in that game. So if you want to come out and throw a haymaker, I think that's okay.
I'll keep that in mind.
Okay. I know you like it. The unsolicited advice you can get right here on the Boneyard podcast. So, Coach, we're excited. And no matter what the outcome, man, it's exciting to see this. There's going to be a great crowd out there in McKinney and Lake Highlands. Get out there a little early. Go to the pizza place I said, or if you want to roll into town, great stuff on the square, the McKinney Square. I just like your face when I start to talk about extracurricular things. You're like, please get back on football. All right. For Davis Wilson, who does a great job behind enemy lines, and Coach Corey Campbell, we'll see you in McKinney. Thank you for watching the Boneyard Podcast.